But let's check in with our next guest. Adam Ottavino joins us, 15-year MLB veteran pitcher, kind enough to give us some time here on Inside the Betting Lines. Adam, great having you on the show, man. I want to start with the Dodgers. Denton and I were discussing them early on in the show. Obviously, World Series champs last year, have this loaded roster. They have a ton of injuries, though, right now. When you look at that NL West with, like, the Padres and the Giants right there, Adam, do you think that San Diego or San Francisco could win that division with all the injuries that the Dodgers have?
I think it's possible. I'd still be a little surprised if it played out that way, just because some of these pitchers are going to come back, starting with, I believe, Snell starting to feel a lot better. They got to get Glasnow figured out. But, yeah, if the Dodgers get their pitchers back intact, I still like them to win the division. But right now they are a little vulnerable. So, they better keep the foot on the gas pedal in the meantime and not let those guys get too close.
They got a series coming up with the Padres. Obviously, it's very early in the season still, but we're also kind of approaching the halfway mark. How do you view a series like that in terms of what it could end up meaning potentially down the line in September and October?
Well, the atmosphere will be electric. Those two teams have really cultivated their rivalry up to a new level, probably the last 5 or 6 years, especially the last few, meeting in the playoffs a couple times. I do think that the meaning behind the series, probably don't want to make too much out of that. Either way, the teams will look different when all the chips are on the table in October. But I do think that for momentum's sake, it would be important to win that series, especially for the Dodgers. They've been struggling a little bit the last week or so. I think if they want to keep their grip on the division, it would be a nice place to start, would be to keep the Padres right where they are.
Arizona was a team that a lot of people liked coming into the year. Adam, they just had some devastating news with Burns being out for the year. I mean, what do you think that means for them? Do you think they could still rally and make a playoff push, or losing Corbin Burns, do you think Arizona's going to have a tough time?
They've got a really good team, but they're in a similar situation where without Burns, they don't have their true ace anymore. Gallen hasn't been himself yet. Merrill Kelly got hurt last year, so he's got to make it all the way through. And Erod, Eduardo Rodriguez, really hasn't been himself either. So at the beginning of the year on paper, I really loved the rotation. I actually thought they were the second best team in that division. But yeah, without those guys, it's going to be tricky if they're looking at a wild card spot, in my opinion, at best, at this point forward, and they're going to need the offense to kind of carry them.
When you look at the American League, specifically the AL East, obviously the Yankees sit at the top right there. When you watch them and the way they performed at this point in the season, what are some of the things that's jumped out to you about them?
Well, for one thing, the way Fried and Rodon have pitched, both of those guys are probably in the top, handful of guys in the league performance-wise thus far in the season. That's really big, picking up the slack from Garrett Cole going down. I also really like the additions of Goldschmidt and Bellinger. Bellinger kind of rounds out their team defensively. Also, he's been getting hot a little bit with the bat lately. Goldschmidt's been amazing. Really, outside of Judge, Goldschmidt's been their number one producer of runs. Besides Judge. So for me, those two moves were huge. Jazz Chisholm coming back is big. I think they're going to run away with the American League East, in my opinion. I think Toronto's probably the second best team, but Yankees are in a good spot. They just need to kind of keep doing what they're doing, keep chopping wood, as Carlos Rodon has been saying, and I think they're going to run away with that division.
Do you think either the Red Sox or the Orioles have a run in them as we approach like the All-Star break or maybe the second half? The Red Sox have kind of been 500 all year. The O's got off to a terrible start. They're playing much better here as of late. Do you see either one of those teams, Adam, like maybe making a playoff push second half of the season?
I think I like Boston a little more than Baltimore. Baltimore just doesn't have enough pitching in my mind. They have a really nice offense, and they have some guys that are starting to pitch a little better, but overall their depth just isn't really there on the mound. Boston has guys. They have the depth, so I think they can turn it around. They just kind of need to get themselves pointed in the right direction. They've been treading water, as you said, and I feel like they've had a lot of internal turmoil. They need something that kind of gets them rolling in the right direction because they do have the talent. Especially once they call up Roman Anthony, they're going to have even more firepower in that offense.
So you mentioned you think New York runs away with that division, and Fried has been great. Rodon has been really, really good as well. Do you think, though, that they have enough pitching to compete with a team like Detroit in the American League? Because it feels like their pitching staff is just on fire at the moment.
I do. I like the Yankees pitching staff. It's top heavy for sure, but it's extremely elite at the top end. I mean, even in the bullpen, Devin Williams, the best of his season is still to come. Mark Leiter's looked really good. Fernando Cruz, I believe, is in in the top 1 or 2 in reliever strikeouts. So they have some high-end guys to go along with Fried and Rodon. And I think that's what you really need come playoff time. I know that depth matters a lot in the regular season, but I think they're going to have enough of a cushion to kind of cruise to that point. And once they're in the playoffs, they should be able to identify their 6 or 7 guys that they trust the most to get those outs.
We're talking with Adam Ottavino here, 15-year MLB relief pitcher, played for the Mets, the Yankees, the Red Sox. Adam, the Detroit Tigers have been one of the better stories of the season thus far. I think the conversation with Detroit is this team, the way that they're constructed, good enough to win a World Series? Do you think they need to go out and make moves? How would you assess Detroit at this point, obviously having a great year so far?
I think they need to just watch out for the complacency bug a little bit. They have played great. They have the best pitcher in the world in Skubal. Their bullpen's been amazing. AJ Hinch might be the best manager in the game. I love the way that they play their platoons. I love the way that Torkelson's come along, Riley Green's come along. They have a lot of things going for them. But what I would say is they should still be thinking about the future and that they're going to need a little bit more to get across the finish line. Come October, they're going to be relying on Skubal quite a bit, and it would be nice to have a running mate with him so that he doesn't have to do it all himself every time he touches the ball.
Adam, you're obviously very familiar with New York, the New York market. We talked about the Yankees. On the other side, you get the Mets. There's been a lot of conversation around Juan Soto this year. It wasn't having the success that I know Mets fans wanted to have early. Where are you with him as we sit here now early in the month of June?
Well, finally now, his body language is telling the story that I think everybody's wanted to see from the beginning. They were waiting on the shuffle. They were waiting on the smile. They were waiting to see him interact with his teammates and look like he really wants to be a part of the group. And you're starting to see signs of that the last week or so. I never really bought into much of the narrative about him struggling. I mean, yeah, he's struggling for Juan Soto, but he still had an 800 OPS, and he's still leading the world in walks, and he's still doing his job, basically. And we know he's one hot streak away from being a 950 OPS, basically what he's been his whole career. So I'm not worried about his performance. I was more worried about just like his spirit and whether he was kind of bringing the group down a little bit with his, with his happiness, I guess, or lack thereof. But lately, if you've been watching the games, he looks a lot more engaged. It seems like, he's starting to get more comfortable where he is. And as the summer warms up, I think his bat's going to warm up too.
Adam, you think the Braves are cooked? I mean, they got Acuna back. They got Strider back after that 0-7 start. We thought maybe they'd turn a corner. They've lost 6 in a row. They've lost 8 of their last 10. Do you think this just kind of is what Atlanta is at this point? I think we keep waiting for them to kind of go on a run, and it just hasn't happened yet. Do you think this team is just kind of like a 500 baseball team, or do you expect them to turn back into the Atlanta Braves that we've seen the last 5, 6, 7 years?
I've been expecting it, and I continue to expect it. I expect them to play better. In all my years in the NL East, they were always the scariest team. They have basically the same team as they've had the last few years. Acuna's back healthy. They have the talent to do it. Some of their losses have been big gut punches the last few days. There's no doubt about that, and I'm sure they're frustrated. Obviously, you've seen some interesting stuff come out of Atlanta, canning their third base coach midway through the year. And they've done a couple other things that are kind of not really indicative of the Braves team that we're used to seeing. But at the end of the day, they have the horses. They have the guys. I really think that they're going to make a run here and push for that second wild card spot. You just can't count out Atlanta. They've been too good for too long, and I don't think that just goes away.
Adam, in a couple of years, are the Yankees going to give Paul Skeens $500 million? Because he's clearly not going to stay. I mean, he's so good, and Pittsburgh is giving him no backup. He feels like a future Yankee at this point.
Somebody will, but I do think that the trend lately seems to be kind of giving the position players the big contracts. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when Skeens gets to that point. And what's crazy is we're pretty far away from that point for him. He's 4 years away from free agency after this season. So I guess we'll pump the brakes on that a little bit. I think if I was the Pirates, I would maybe try to make a move sooner rather than later with him, just to recoup that value and kind of rebuild their entire team, because they're definitely going nowhere, in my opinion. But Yankees, I don't know. It's interesting. They do go big game hunting. There's certain guys that they target. I don't know if Skeens is one of those guys yet, but he's been incredible to this point and really fun to watch.
Adam, is there a team that you currently look at in Major League Baseball that they're just either really fun to watch, they're a great team that, like, if you could put yourself in that situation, be a relief pitcher on that team, is there a team that you would love to play for right now in baseball?
Oh, geez. I'm a little bit of a front runner, so any of the teams that are winning are always fun to play on.
Sure.
I like Kansas City a lot. I feel like they're sneaky. They're not having the year that they wanted to have yet, and I know Detroit's kind of well ahead of them, but I like their team. They're scrappy. They're young. They just called up Caglione. That would be a fun team to be on, to see the young guys play, and Bobby Witt and Jack Caglione, obviously. And I really like the way Waka's been throwing the ball. Reagans, they have some real guys there. So to me, they're kind of a sneaky under the radar fun team this year.
What have you made of Caglione so far? I know short sample size, but he's made a couple really good plays.
Well, he looks unbelievable in the uniform, number one. He's a nice paisan like myself, so I really like watching that man swing the bat. You can just see it. When he makes contact, it's a collision. It's violent, and that's something that you can't necessarily teach. There's only a few guys in the league that can hit the ball as hard as him, and I've liked his at-bat so far. It is super short sample, as you pointed out, but I'm a believer in this kid. It's kind of crazy that he's already in the big leagues this fast, but the tools are just undeniable. And if all else fails, you could throw him on the mound too. So I'm a big fan of Caglione, and I'm hoping to maybe play with him in the Italian WBC one of these days.
Nice. Adam, about 100 games left to go in the regular season. Still a ton of baseball. At this point, though, like teams to beat for you in the American League, National League, sounds like you like the Yankees in the AL. Who would you put at the NL? Is it still the Dodgers for you?
Yeah, American League, it's Yankees in Detroit for sure. National League, I would say the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Mets. Those are probably the big three right now.
All right, very good. Great talking to Adam Ottavino, 15-year MLB veteran pitcher, joining us here on Inside the Betting Lines. Adam, appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yep. All right, great stuff there.